Hello, hello! Today I will be featuring a ship that has been much requested and I only just unlocked it on my Russian account. The Friedrich der Große, the tier 9 German battleship. And now my plan here was actually to go to A with this Fletcher, but it looks like the Fletcher is AFK. So my original plan of pushing into A with the Fletcher, popping my hydro and like being really useful and having some fun, just went completely out the window because the Fletcher is completely AFK and I have no idea when he'll load in. And now I see they're also charging quite a few into A, and someone is already capping A, which makes me think it's a DD. So pushing in without my own DD to help me would probably be complete suicide at this point. Worth mentioning is I just unlocked it on my Russian account, so I have a completely stock Friedrich der Große. That means I don't have a range upgrade, which means my range is only 18.5. I don't have the hull upgrade, which means my health is pretty much 11-12k lower than it usually should be. And worst of all, my rudder shift is abysmal. I got 24.5 second rudder shift because I don't have the hull upgrade. So obviously the first thing I'm saving for right now in terms of XP is the upgraded hull, because it gives a huge amount of anti-air, which I really need. My anti-air is terrible. Every game there's a carrier, they recognize that I'm running the stock hull, so they like focusing me, and in general dodging any sort of incoming fire or torps or anything with your 24.5 second rudder shift is a massive pain in the ass, to put it quite simply. So how do you deal with running the stock Friedrich? Well, I didn't have any doubloons for respecking, and I figured why not try running it on the secondary build. I was running on a Bismarck. I only have a 14-point captain, so I only have like the basics of my secondary build, which includes basic firing training, AFT, and manual secondaries. Now because I run BFT and I don't have captain points, I'm actually lacking one of the heals. You can tell I only have 4 heals instead of the 5 heals. And that's pretty much okay though, because the whole purpose of running this build I do is with BFT and AFT you get really good anti-air. Well, it doesn't really, it applies to the Bismarck, and it will kinda apply to this ship once I get the upgraded hull, but right now of course my anti-air is absolutely abysmal. And now in general going up to A on this map is not a good idea. I don't really like going up to A because usually a lot of teammates tend to follow you here, and that's a recipe for losing the game. However, my plan was to push in with the Fletcher, but the Fletcher is still AFK. You might see him is still sitting AFK in our base. So that plan, that kind of ruined my entire plan, and now I see more and more of my team sailing up here with me, which is of course also an issue. But if you do end up going up to A, there is a way to make it somewhat useful, and that is pushing. Hard, aggressive pushing, and just taking the fight to the enemy ASAP. Because, well, if you're gonna go up here, you have to be used. The biggest problem with the reason why going up here is a bad idea is because it isolates you from the enemy, it isolates you from your teammates, and in general you have a hard time really being useful. You have a hard time having an impact on the battle. But you can kind of mitigate this by doing what I'm doing, which is picking a fight with pretty much everyone. It's hard to call me useful when I'm actively fighting multiple targets and in general being in the middle of the brawl and tanking for my team. So this kind of worked, but the reason it works mostly is because, well, the enemy team pushed very heavily into the north as well. But this tends to happen quite often, and I just shot the full broadside York and I didn't get a single hit. That's always nice. He's still completely full HP. Is he actually parking there full broadside? Here we get, of course, one of the reasons why I actually quite like running this secondary build on the Friedrich right now, is this York who's full broadside and reversing. I shoot him, I get 2 overpens. And you think that's, wow, he was unlucky. No, anyone who's played the Friedrich der Große knows that this is a very common thing. Your guns are incredibly unreliable. Like, if you had to pick the #1 most troll guns in the game, it would probably be the Friedrich der Großes. Launching volleys at full broadside cruisers and seeing this becomes extremely common the more you play this ship. Special props to this Fletcher here. this Fletcher pops an extremely clutch smoke. He sees that, well, this guy is tanking literally the entire enemy team. I'm tanking like 3 different battleships, plus whatever different cruisers they have there, the York and Mayoko and what else. So he decides to pop a really good smoke, so props to him. Finally, the dispersion agrees with me, and the guy who's literally been reversing full broadside finally gets citadeled. But it took me, what, like 4 full broadsides at the guy who was constantly just reversing. And that's something you're gonna have to get used to, and that's something, the reason why I've actually quite been liking this secondary build on this ship. In the past, I didn't enjoy it too much, but these days, because of, well, the guns just showing their full trolley power, I have to say I've kind of been enjoying it. Now I might change my mind when I get fully upgraded, when I get this ship fully upgraded, but as of now I have to say that I don't see any reason of changing my build from the Bismarck to the Friedrich der Große, because this secondary build has given me so much additional damage and so much additional threat, and that's exactly what this ship has been missing for me, that additional threat, because, well, the main guns are just not reliable at all. Organizer now is pushing in. If you did notice though, my plan was to shoot his superstructure, but I think I aimed a bit too low, so I hit his belt, and that made all the shells bounce. Of course, if someone is coming in like that, a German battleship, you want to hit his superstructure, because otherwise you'll just get bounces. Full broadside York, what do I get? 3 overpens and a bounce. Like, that's kind of what I mean, and that's why I really like this gun, this secondary build. The problem, of course, with running the kind of secondary build that I am running is that you have to get into a situation to use them. And in this map and in this game, I managed to get into a situation where I get tremendous value out of my secondaries, because they can constantly fire on multiple different targets. I am using manual secondaries, and I am focusing these different targets here. It's simply because it's a replay, you cannot see the focusing target popping up, but I am using manual secondaries for those wondering. And in this case, it's the York that's the only one in range. But yeah, I have to say that as of right now, this build has been working really well. The standard Bismarck secondary build has been working really well. It could have to do with I'm playing on the Russian server, so I'm not as recognized as I was on the, well, no one pretty much knows who I am besides very few, like my Russian subs, basically, or Russian viewers, which make up a fairly small percentage of the actual player base. Whereas on the EU server, when I play with my Flamu nickname, I get a lot of focus, a lot of people recognize me, and I had such issues getting into brawling range. And that's why I like playing on different servers as well, because this gives me the perspective of your average player. Because for the people here, I'm just any other player. I'm not anything special. No one recognizes me, no one puts particularly much focus on me. So I'm able to use these builds that are more brawling focused and see how they work, instead of getting my natural own bias that pretty much comes automatically from all the focus I get. And that's made this kind of brawling secondary build that I normally wouldn't recommend on my EU account, because I would have such issues making it work. On the Russian account, even a stock Friedrich with the secondaries seems very strong and a lot of fun to play. I mean, we are halfway through the game. I've got 120k, over 120k damage. I've taken a shit ton of damage as well, but I've burned through almost all my heals, and overall this game has so far been a ton of fun, and just like non-stop action and a ton of fun, and this is exactly what I want to see. Aiming high on the superstructure so I get those pens. Still a bit too low, as you see, two shells landed a bit too low, but that could be dispersion, because I did clearly aim for the superstructure. In general, when another ship pushes you like this, you want to be aiming for that superstructure. I'm giving a bit much broadside here, but that's mostly because I want my secondaries to do some work, because I expect to die here. There's no way I'm gonna. This Bismarck had like, or this Bismarck was full HP when this fight started, so I'm trying to get my secondaries to do as much damage on him as possible, especially since he used his repair earlier. So the more secondary fires I start on him, the better, because, well, he's probably gonna wreck me. Kind of want to hold my fire here. Holding my fire, holding my fire. His volley might kill me, so I did shoot. Okay, it turns out his volley didn't kill me, so I could have held fire a bit longer because I had 2 bounces, but I couldn't take the risk. I needed to get shoot as soon as possible. Now I'm forced to turn in, which isn't necessarily what I would have wanted to do, but there's friendly torps coming from my teammates that I had to dodge, which is a bit of a shame. Mogami and Algeri torps. But I do have the triple fire on this guy, and it's completely impossible for him to repair them, so I do expect to be able to secure my Kraken and a flesh wound. And with this kill, and even though I ended up going A, we do in fact manage to secure the victory in this game, which is of course quite fun. Overall though, 183k damage, not that much, but a Kraken and 426 secondary hits. So this was one of those games where this build just worked. And once again, this is why I really enjoy playing on different servers, because it gives me a different view of how builds work. Because there's many builds that simply do not work for me on EU, and that's because I get recognized a lot and I get focused a lot because of it. And this kind of gives me a different point of view, and that's why I really enjoy playing these different servers. Or although the Friedrich der Große, it still has the very same issues. Fantastic tankiness. I mean, turtleback, hydro, good anti-air once you get the hull. Overall, just a superbly tanky ship and great secondaries. The issue is, of course, the guns are incredibly trolly. You can go from devastating strike to getting 1 overpen, like shooting at the very same target. It's completely random. You saw that York. It took me 4 volleys on a full broadside. Only overpins on the 3 first volleys, and then a double citadel on the 4th one that devastated him. There's very little consistency, and that's why these secondaries have been surprisingly good. Score-wise, this Bismarck was at the end, I think he capped B, so that kind of pushed his XP a bit, but overall, me and the Bismarck did a lot of work. I'm a bit sad for this Fletcher that he didn't get more XP. I still think that DD should be rewarded for any damage done in their smokes. So if someone is in their smoke and they do damage, the DD gets a percentage XP of the damage done as a reward, because his smoke helped me so much in surviving. And looking at the detailed report, 116,000 main gun damage, and but then we get secondary battery 426, 18k, but more importantly, of course, the fire started by the secondaries add up to what, 65k of secondary damage on top, which is quite a lot of damage. I got 52k spotting, which is pretty good for a battleship. 1.8 million potential damage, not really that much, but then you gotta consider I only lived for 11 minutes and I kind of had the entire, like pretty much half their fleet against me. The smoke of course helped me a ton. Overall though, I've been having a ton of fun in this ship, and especially with this build and the fact that I'm not recognized as much on this Russian server, which is very enjoyable. Anyway, just like with the Zumo, as I get more upgrades and as I get this ship fully upgraded, I will make a more updated commentary, because of course a stock ship plays completely different from an upgraded ship. In this case, just getting the hull upgrade will increase my rudder shift, will increase my anti-air, will increase my health pool, and then I can get better range, better speed, better guns. Like, there's so many upgrades that I can still get for this ship, so obviously I will cover that later. Anyway, moving on to my recommended build for this ship. Right, starting off, of course, we have the modules. Now, I don't really have any of them bought yet, but I did manage to unlock the hull, which is the most expensive one. I think it cost 54k XP, but I don't have the money for it yet. I'll have to grind those credits, because once again, this is my Russian account where I'm not nearly as loaded as I'm on my main account. But priority-wise, I will get the hull first for the massive HP bonus, the AA defense, and even though it doesn't show it, it gives you a ton of rudder shift. Followed by that, I would get the speed upgrade, which this is a pretty considerable speed upgrade. 2.8 knots is a huge bonus. Then I would probably follow it up with the range, and finally go for the guns. I do remember liking the 420s a lot more, because I remember them being a lot more consistent than these main guns were. Even if in terms of dispersion it doesn't look any different, I did enjoy these 420 guns a lot more. So ultimately I will fully upgrade the ship. Consumable wise, premium repair, absolutely, followed by premium heal, followed by, if you can afford it, premium hydro and premium fighter plane. Now on some ships I use premium spotting aircraft to shoot into smokes, but the dispersion is already so unreliable on the ship and you only have 8 guns, so I don't think there's any point. Instead I'm just going for the fighter to help with the anti-air, since especially on the stock Friedrich you really need it. Once you get the upgraded hull you gain a massive boost to your mid-range anti-air, which helps a lot, but until then, I mean, holy crap, this anti-air is pitiful. Upgrade wise, I got the AA and secondary mounts because, well, I'm going secondary build, and ultimately I never really found myself losing main battery pretty much ever, because the main battery has pretty damn good armor and you need to be pretty unlucky to actually get those knocked out. I also got secondary battery mod, but I do have the main battery mod here because ultimately I think this adds so much to your destructive power, because secondary guns are too RNG based in general, and this is the 3 million upgrade is absolutely for the main guns. Especially once I get them upgraded, they will be significantly more devastating. I run damage control 1 and 2. Now this is a bit risky, and I will partially say that it had to also to do with the lack of money to be able to buy the steering gears mod 2. But I actually quite like the tankiness on the ship, even though it means my rudder shift is absolute garbage until I get this hull upgrade. When you really push in and you fight these other secondary ships, being able to take more HE damage and basically taking less fire damage in general does feel pretty damn important. However, you always trade something off, and losing rudder shift when you want to brawl in your ship is of course always a pretty damn big trade-off. So this one I leave kind of down to which you like better. If you're uncomfortable with how horrible the rudder shift is, then run the steering gears mod. If you can deal with it and play around it, then run this one. Ultimately, I leave this one up to you. I don't think there's any bad choice here. Both are just as viable. Finally, I run concealment, simply because of the reason that if you don't run concealment, you are literally spotted from across the map. And this is a problem because, well, you eat quite a lot of damage, and pretty much every HE spammer loves shooting at you if they see you. So just running this module alone reduces the amount of damage you take at long range, and you don't really need this target acquisition, simply because you of course have hydro, which means this one is ultimately pretty damn useless as long as you time your hydro usage correctly. Captain perks wise, I'm still running my Bismarck build, which of course starts with preventive maintenance, follows up with adrenaline rush, because the main battery turret traverse is so good that you can get away with it. I run the same thing on the Bismarck as well, and follows up with BFT, AA plus secondaries, good combo, AFT, AA plus secondaries again, really good combo, and finally manual secondaries. This is of course the basis of my Bismarck build. With the Bismarck build, I also add in manual AA for that massive anti-air. I haven't decided yet if I want to do it. There seems to be a lot of carriers on the Russian server, so I might ultimately go for adding manual AA. We'll have to see about that. I'll have to decide on that on the future. I only have a 14-point captain right now, so this is my basic build, which is pretty much my Bismarck build for now. Anyway, that was my preemptive Friedrich der Große commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.